Welcome to Dungeon Academics. My name is Thomas and I will be your instructor. I like to watch Colby on D4, that's Dungeons and Dragons Deep Dive. I like the way he makes videos, I like the way he presents his builds, and he has some great ideas on how to build characters that are optimized for damage in combat. That's not the way I necessarily play Dungeons and Dragons. I really enjoy the mechanical tinkering that he does, and I think the way he tries to optimize characters and find interesting rules interaction, that appeals to me greatly. So even though he often builds characters that I wouldn't necessarily want to play myself, I do enjoy the way that he works. And with that in mind, I thought I'd like to compare Doug, my Tortle, with some of his builds and see how they compare. Because Doug is not built primarily for combat, but I've definitely made him so that he's fun to use in combat. As I've said many times, my ethos is damage, and I like to have characters where I'm not just bashing someone until their sack of hit points is empty. I'm doing things, I'm moving them around the table, I'm putting status effects on them, I'm triggering alternate sources of damage. And with Doug the Tortle, this works really, really well. Even at level 1, when he was just level 1 Hexblade Warlock, he's got the Crusher feat as a starting feat. So in his turn, he'll cast Booming Blade and hit you with his stick. The Crusher feat will push you back, and then when you move into combat with him again, that will trigger the Booming Blade effect. I think that's nice. You get these like extra little triggers. Oh, and he's put Hex on you as well. So there's 3 sources of damage. There's the hit with the stick, then there's the extra damage from Hex, and then there's the extra damage when you move back into combat. So 3 different damage triggers. That's great fun. Now that he's level 2, I've multi-classed into Wizard, and I'm going to take quite a few levels in Wizard before I go back to Warlock. I'm going to specialise in Bladesinger, and because he's got a familiar now, his parrot called Balloons, I now get advantage on that attack, which is really useful because if you're only doing 1 attack, you really want it to hit. As I build the character up, he's going to get several more things that make him more effective in combat. He will get his next feat when he hits character level 5 and Wizard 4. And I'm going to give him the Polar Master feat. This will give 2 useful things. I'll get a bonus action attack with the butt of the staff. To be fair, most turns I'm probably not going to be using that bonus action to attack. I'll be in the first turn of combat, I'll want to activate Blade Singing. That extra boost on armor class is fantastic, and the additional bonuses to taking concentration checks is going to be useful to keep Hex up. So first turn bonus action, I'll be Blade Singing. Second turn bonus action, I'm going to be putting Hex on. And then if I take my target down, next turn, I'll use my bonus action to retarget Hex. So I'm only going to get that bonus action attack against the biggest targets. Of course, I've also got Hexblade's Curse. I can only use this a limited number of times per day, but if I'm going up against a really big boss character, then yes, I'll Blade Sing, then I'll put Hex on, then I'll put Hexblade's Curse, and then maybe in the 4th turn, I'll make a bonus action attack. So that bonus action attack isn't a huge part of my plan. What is a huge part of my plan is the reaction attack, because my whole plan relies on hitting someone and pushing them away from me to trigger the booming blade damage when they move. And if they move back into combat with me, getting a reaction attack, that's a whole extra attack. Fantastic. So at level 5, when I get that, I run the numbers. Against an armor class 10 character, an enemy, very weak one, I can expect to do over 4 turns about 152 points of damage. which is about 38 points of damage per turn, which is really good. Against an armor class 15 character, I can expect to do about 114 points of damage over 4 turns, which averages to about 29 points of damage a turn. And against an armor class 20 target, I'm going to expect to do about 73 points of damage over 4 turns, which is about 18 per turn. These are really good numbers. They compare very favourably with the stuff that Colby builds that's optimised just for damage. Because even though I'm a wizard at this point, a level 4 wizard, I'm not using any leveled spells in combat apart from Hex. I'm building my wizard to be mainly a support character, so that in the narrative and story parts of the game, which I enjoy just as much as the combat, I've got always something that I can either be doing myself or I can be using to assist other members of the party. I really don't like playing characters that are so optimized in combat they don't have a role outside of combat. And there are some wizard characters who are so reliant on their spell slots in combat that using a spell slot outside of combat is unheard of. It's a terrible waste of potential. I treat it the other way around. I use one level 1 spell slot, that's Hex, and I get that back on a short rest because I'm a warlock. And all my wizard spell slots are there for non-combat things. Sure, I might pick up Fireball or a few powerful control spells, but my playing style is not based around using these high-level spell slots in combat. They're there if the perfect opportunity arises. If you see 30 goblins huddled around a campfire, of course you're going to want to Fireball it. And I will. Of course I will. But I'm not building myself to primarily use high-level spells in combat. So there's a great one that Colby did last year sometime, or maybe it was 2 years ago, about using, I can't remember, it was a fire spell shooting off multiple beams. Really powerful, but you absolutely reserve your highest level spell slots for that. Me? No, I'm using cantrips and beating people with a stick in combat, and I'm getting really good damage results. What if we move up to level 7? Why is level 7 important for me? Well, for Doug, that would be Bladesinger Wizard 6, Warlock 1. And at Bladesinger Wizard level 6, you get extra attack, and you can use a cantrip for that second attack. So my turns are now looking quite nice. I hit you on the head with a stick, great. I might do a bonus action attack with a stick as well, or I'll be casting Hex, or I'll be blade singing. And as my extra attack, then I'll be using Booming Blade. So I have a bonus action which could be used for a spell, a feature, or a melee attack. I have a regular melee attack, and then I have a second attack, which is a spell, a cantrip. Running the numbers there, against armor class 10, I'm expecting to do about 47 points of damage, or 190 points over 4 turns. That's brilliant. Against armor class 15, it's 159 points of damage over 4 turns, or about 40 per turn. And against armor class 20, 110 points over 4 turns, or about 28 per turn. Again, these are really good numbers for a character who is not purely optimized to be combat. Yes, okay, I've optimized him to a degree for combat, but he's built as a general purpose character for storytelling, role-playing, and exploration who happens to be good at combat. Level 9. Now that's where things get really fun, because I get my second additional feat for Wizard 8, and that's going to be Warcaster. Now, Warcaster has many advantages for combat casters. It allows you to cast a weapon in your hand, even if you're holding a shield. Doesn't really apply to Doug, because Doug's going to be blade singing, so he can't have a shield and he can't have a weapon in his second hand or be wielding a weapon two-handed. He's already got a hand free then. But it does make passing concentration checks even more likely. But what it does above all else is when you get a reaction attack, instead of making a melee attack, you can cast another cantrip. And of course, that's probably going to be Booming Blade. So, what I can now do is I can hit someone with an attack, either cast Hex or put on Blade Singing, or maybe put on Hexblade's Curse as a bonus action, then hit them with a second melee attack, which is also Booming Blade, and push them back. If they move, they trigger the Booming Blade bubble to collapse. Then, assuming they come back to me, I can hit them again as a reaction attack using a cantrip, so that's Booming Blade, and I get to push them back again because of the Crusher feat. And then they move back to attack me, and that triggers a second bubble collapse. So essentially, I'm double dipping Booming Blade because I'm using it once in my turn and I'm using once in their turn. The only minor disadvantages is the one with the reaction attack. I'm not making that attack at advantage because my familiar can only assist once, and they're assisting with the main attack on my turn. Now, there are some potential limits to this. If I'm attacking a target that's huge or larger, I can't push them back with the Crusher feat. So, I mean, I have other options as well. I have Eldritch Blast, and at some point I will invest in Repelling Blast and Agonizing Blast as Eldritch Invocations, but they're probably going to be occurring around around level 12 or so. So it's not really a priority. But nonetheless, this is a really, really good build. At level 9, against an armor class 10 target, I have an expected damage of 246 over 4 turns, or about 62 per turn. Against armor class 15, it's 203 damage over 4 turns, or about 51 damage per turn. And against armor class 20, 142 damage over 4 turns. That's about 36 per turn. And I am still an almost full spellcaster. I'm a level 8 wizard with a 1 level dip in Warlock. So I have all of the utility of being a wizard. And again, mostly non-combat spells, but I'll probably have a few big ones that I can throw in if I need to. This puts me firmly in Colby's tier 1 sustained damage comparison. So he's built a lot of really powerful characters. He's compared them all on how much damage they do at different levels. And I'm up there. I mean, it's comparable to his Hexblade Singer. It's comparable to, well, better than the Cheese Grater. It's a little bit less than the Hex Blow or the Pamlock. That's Polar Master Warlock. So, yeah, I'm not doing quite as much damage as his characters, but he's optimizing it for other things than me. And that's fine. We have different ways of playing Dungeons & Dragons. To be honest, I'd love to sit around the table and play a game with him. I think it would be fantastic. He'll do more damage than me. I don't have a problem with that. In fact, I think it's great. I think it's great to have a mix of characters around the table. If you've got someone who's aiming purely for damage, let them do their damage. Let them wade into a sea of enemies, hacking and blasting left and right, and have their character's moment. One of the things I quite like to do is use my spell slots to assist that. If I have an opportunity to make somebody else's character better, I'm going to take it, even if it means my character isn't as powerful as it could be. One thing I really want to get is Dispel, Enlarge, Reduce. If I find an appropriate moment where I can cast Enlarge or Haste on an ally and make them even more powerful, well, that's certainly more fun than me just using Hex to get a bit of extra damage on every attack. So yeah, let them be the combat monster. Let them have their moment and destroy everything and feel great about it. because I'm still going to do quite a lot of damage and I'm still going to have fun, and the whole table working together to absolutely annihilate their enemies, that's the best case scenario for me. So Doug's quite happy. I built this all the way up to level 11 because level 11 gives me an extra step up in power for Booming Blade. At level 11 you get 2d8 damage on additional 2d8 damage on a hit, and you do 3d8 damage when your target moves. Against an armor class 10 enemy, I am now expecting to do about 303 points of damage in over 4 turns. That's about 76 points per turn. Against armor class 15, it's about 239 damage over 4 turns, or about 60 per turn. And against armor class 20, it's about 158 damage over 4 turns, which is about 40 per turn. Now, this is assuming that I'm only attacking one target. If I'm attacking a multitude of targets, it will be less efficient. If I hit a target and it dies before the Booming Blade bubble collapses, then I don't get to do that additional damage to something else. Every time I kill a target, I then need to use a bonus action to retarget Hex if I want to. Of course, if the targets are soft and squishy, Hex may not be needed, so there's no point in doing that. But this is assuming I'm fighting against a large single target who can soak up these hit points and just keep coming back for more, because that's the most efficient situation for this build. There are plenty of situations where using Booming Blade, either as my primary attack cantrip or as a reaction attack, doesn't do as much damage as Eldritch Blast would, especially if I've applied Agonizing Blast. And the pushback for Repelling Blast is so useful and fun in combat. So there are going to be times when I might want to use Eldritch Blast instead of Booming Blade, especially once I hit character level 12 and I take that second level in Warlock and I get those Eldritch Invocations. But that's not what I've built it for. That's not the fun part for me in combat. The fun part for me in combat is the Booming Blade, because it's just a riot, hitting something with a stick and then having all these additional damage riders onto it. I'm hoping at some point I get lucky enough and find a nice magic staff. There are some really, really great magic staffs out there. Some of them have the same damage boosts as powerful magic weapons, and then give you bonuses on your spells as well. And finding one of those really would level up. But I haven't factored anything like that into the combat. I also haven't factored in using Hexblade's Curse, as I've said, because it's quite mechanically complex to rejig everything to change your crit targets. I haven't bothered with that. And I should add there's an extra element of complexity in this, because the whole reaction attack is dependent on my main attack hitting. My main attack hitting and pushing my target back. If it doesn't happen, then I don't get the reaction attack in the subsequent turn. Once you get to character level 7, for me, and Bladesinger Wizard 6, I get second attack. So even if my primary attack misses, I still get the option to push something back with an additional attack. Because you have 2 attacks and you swap one of them for a cantrip. That makes this whole thing a bit more reliable. So if you miss with your primary attack, you still have a secondary attack. I think what's most likely to happen for Doug is he's going to go to his primary target, hit it with its stick and push it back. And then if he has a second attack, he'll put it on a different target, because there's no point then stepping up to the primary target to put the second attack on it, because then this primary target doesn't need to move and Booming Blade doesn't get triggered. So in reality, I am planning on moving around and attacking multiple targets in a turn. And as I've mentioned in previous videos, moving around the battlefield and attacking more than one target each turn is so much more fun than just purely optimized combat against one target. It does mean that my second attack won't benefit from Hex. A minor reduction in damage for a major increase in fun. And why not? That's what the game's about. For me, it's not about optimizing damage, it's about optimizing fun. Being effective in combat is part of that, but it's not the only consideration for me. I put together a spreadsheet about this. I'm not going to share it with you because it's not a very pretty one. But I think doing this with characters is interesting. I think it's fun. You get to see what you could do under optimal circumstances, and that allows you to think, what can I do in combat to make these optimum circumstances? If you understand how your character works, if you know how to get the best out of your character, you're more likely to enjoy playing them in combat. If you've got a character where you don't quite understand what's going on, you might be disappointed with the results you get in combat. And I've had that happen to me, and I've seen that happen to other people, where we felt our characters were very underwhelming because we didn't know how to use them properly. So a bit of practice can help you master your character and get more fun out of them. And I said this before, but doing the most damage in combat isn't the only thing that's fun. But it is part of it for me. And your views may differ, and that's okay. Everyone gets to enjoy different parts about the game. As long as everyone around the table is having fun, then it's all great. So thank you for listening to me talk about my Dungeons & Dragons character. It really is one of my most fun things to talk about, and my wife is just not interested, so I'm talking with you a lot about it. So thank you, and enjoy your next game, whatever it may be.